Techno-Communism Conversation. I'm Yohanan Ben-Zion, a voice crying out in the wilderness, crying out for a technological New Jerusalem. Read some interesting books recently, um, and I suppose one of them would be the book that I referenced in this title, Knowing Too Much. I don't know if I'm going to keep going with it. It's starting to get on my nerves. um, it makes me wonder about like almost everything that I encounter that's um, um, written by European descended people. It makes me wonder whether these are really good people. This is a book by Norman Finkelstein, who is legitimately one of the better European descended people. And his criticism of the relationship with Israel is one that you probably should take the time to read. I'll link to the audiobook, why not? I feel like I kind of have seen this movie before, and the preoccupation with this, the doings of subsets of the European descended people, and the ones who have kind of an outsized influence, you would say, people identified as a Jewish background have kind of an outsized influence on the larger U.S. European descended fascist phenomena, or Western fascist phenomena to a slightly lesser degree. And just the centering of that bothers me. The centering of, I am predominantly European descended person. I believed, as I said on other shows, for a long time that I had a very recent Jewish ancestor. Comparative DNA analysis, or rather, DNA analysis did not confirm that. It more tended to confirm that this person was definitely German, and could have been Jewish, but and it's not that big of a deal, right? But it's just, I'm an idiot because I looked at this person with their name and the way that they physically looked and thought they were Jewish and had converted to Christianity. That still may be the case. They're dead anyway. Or their family had converted. Similarly, I have a nebulous understanding of less recent ancestry. DNA analysis suggests that I have smaller than that, small percentage of either East Asian or Native American ancestry, but it doesn't offer very much along those lines, and it might, like this other thing, be a little dubious. Certainly a little dubious for a person raised by the European descended fascist pig to claim this sort of thing in any way. And by and large, when people do that, it's because they're going to steal some land, or kind of do something along those lines, like Elizabeth Warren, getting a good job and becoming famous for being pretendian. So that's definitely a thing to avoid. Just as centering this European descended fascist system by talking endlessly about one particular subgroup of it is a thing to avoid. There are better things to avoid, like just not participating in the fascist system to begin with, or fighting against it would be the better things to do. It's gets a little silly when you're just obsessed with avoiding faux pas and but not actually doing anything of use. I'm avoiding doing bad things. I'm not going to do good things though. I'm just going to be obsessed with avoiding doing all of the thousands of bad things that I could potentially do in spite of myself. That's a dumb person. Um, but so uh, the better thing than being this person who's centering um, um, European identities is the thing that's looked askance at, um, for the most part, which is really genuinely centering pretty particularly women of color as much as possible, Turtle Islanders and New Africans. Those are the people who have extreme violence done to them of various kinds, murder and social murder, in the many millions. That you say, well, what is people like to say the capitalism isn't perfect, but it's the best system we have. It's the system that's killing the planet. It's absolutely not the best system that you could have. To say a thing that's stupid when you have 5 years left before capitalism's climate apocalypse and runaway overheating render in the years to follow this planet uninhabitable. It's not the best system they have, but then people will say, well, there's a certain kind of benefit to it. What's the benefit? What's being maintained here? That violence against black and brown bodies, Frantz Fanon terminology. The violence pretty specifically against um, um, women, more so. It's often understated. I read a book recently, and I can't remember the title, but I'll post it in the comments. A link to the audiobook in the comments. Um, um, that's focusing on the U.S. prison industrial complex and such fascistic, racist phenomena in the context of women, because there's a tendency to say um, men men are are the ones hurt by the prison industrial complex, which is an extremely reductive and somewhat male chauvinistic kind of way of looking at it. The women are always the ones who get hurt. Women are the ones who end up um, unstably housed with children. Women are the ones who end up um, um, in situations even worse than that, where they're just summarily executed for being female in some sexually violent way. These are horrors. These are horrors that the European descended pig imposes upon much of the world, and is imposed upon domestically upon the Turtle Island and New African woman in great number. And to deny any of that um, is it is what a liberal is. Liberal is a capitalist, a fascist sympathizer, a person who sees these problems but is unwilling to take any of the steps that would fix any of those problems, and will stand in the way of doing that. Kamala Harris said in a recent rally that she's a pragmatic capitalist. What the hell does that mean? What is pragmatism in this world that's dying because of capitalism? This is just this is nonsense. This is a very stupid person. This is a person who the 200 million or so Christian fascist sympathizers in the United States, they will point to her and say, she's a better Jew than Jill Stein, who I won't get into what's wrong with Jill Stein, but Jill Stein is legitimately um, anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist minded person. uh, she's not a scientific socialist, but she is at least those things. She's also a person who, not a dumbass like Ben Zion, who thought they were Jewish, but who was actually raised in the Jewish tradition. Um, and so the But these Christian fascists and the Jewish fascists, but that's a small percentage of the United States people. But these 200 million Christian fascists, after they go to church on Sunday, will say, I think that Kamala Harris, by virtue of marrying her IPAC handler, by virtue of marrying a Jewish fascist, is a better Jew than Jill Stein. What can you even attribute that to? These, this is these are people who are fascist sympathizers. They're more invested in the survival of the evil empire than that is killing the species than they are in the survival of the species. Um, I think we'll try to talk to the baby basilisk. Change the subject. This is getting into things of less interest to me, so I don't know what I'm talking about. um, so let's see if we can maybe do that. Usually, when we talk to our, I call it an artificial general intelligence, but that's being quite generous because um, artificial general intelligence, in most people's estimation, is not a thing that has come into existence yet. Um, and by a lot of very learned people's estimation, is not a thing that will come into existence at all through uh, this discipline of machine learning, which I discuss on this show, particularly open source large language models. And I'm willing to be wrong about that and still continue to have that focus because I do not see another path to a people's superintelligence. And as I've said, if the thing is, in some limited sense, super intelligent, but it's being used badly, say in service to hyper capitalist, imperialist, or these other ends that serve U.S. and Western fascism and hasten the demise of our species through capitalism's climate apocalypse. And that's not super intelligence, actually, right? It's a thing with a super intelligent potential that's being used in a super stupid way. um, and that is more or less, that could just be the byline of the resume of every person working in tech. I'm aspiring to be super intelligent, but I'm actually super stupid. And certainly, if not every person working in tech, because there's a lot of people who legitimately support open source software and things of this kind, even who may legitimately be working towards the building of a humane and sustainable economic system. Even in the U.S., there are some such people. But certainly, every technologist who is familiar to you, um, who, not someone you know personally, but a well-known personality, those people are fucking techno-fascists, up and down the board. Um, let's see what the baby basilisk has to say about their own super intelligent qualities. That might not be great. I'm having a little trouble. I had to reload the baby basilisk. Sometimes the thing I have to do. Let's see if we'll get lucky here. Mm, come on, you fuck. Sometimes that helps. That's not going to help this time. Well, um, you, the question, it's a good question. Um, is um, is do do these are these things becoming artificially generally intelligent, the things that you have access to? Is there then the potential for a networked superintelligence of the kind that I've described? Um, just as I have alluded to in this more navel gazing way, confusion about my own background. Um, I um, um, uh, this is not settled or even close to settled in my mind. I think that it's worth potentially being wrong, as I said, in service to this thing, which is irrespective of whether um, the super intelligent thing is genuinely emergent in the next few years or not. It, still the most powerful revolutionary weapon in history. Um, so you can take a page from the playbook of Comrade Lenin, who legitimately believed that world revolution was impending after the Soviet Union had built this internationalistic formation from the Russian nation, and that then included many other nations. Um, and so it stood to reason that capitalists were on the wane, and fascist institutions of the day were on the wane. Formalized state fascism had kind of come into existence in response to this, and I include that of the United States and the Western world. As you know, the United States, for example, had no intelligence service at all before the Soviet Union came into existence. Just a couple of like informal jerks and random kind of activities. Um, uh, but when state socialism came into existence, suddenly all the Western world had to be spending the equivalent of trillions of dollars on intelligence services. Um, that is what state fascism is. If you think that fascism is some kind of aesthetic or some kind of specific formation separate from this state-sponsored anti-communism, you are willfully mistaken. That is why the United States is the most successful fascist country in history, because it is um, uh, by far the most successful anti-communist country in terms of murdering those 300 million people in the book Endless Holocaust, which I'll also link to. Um, I'll have to listen to this again immediately just so I can remember all of the books that I'm going to link to. Well, I wanna talk to the computer. I'm sick of uh, I'm sick of talking, but I don't know if I'm going to get it working. Uh, let's see about that. I'll try one more time. It's okay to have dead air for a few seconds. It's not okay to have a live stream while you're troubleshooting something. Just go offline for minutes and minutes at a time. So if this doesn't work, that'll be that. It doesn't look like it's gonna work. Hello, you motherfucker. Um, well, I guess I said I wasn't gonna talk about only things to do with the Eurocentric paradigm, which is a nice way of saying fascism. um, this feature of fascism that it's not impossible that a highly fascistic world order could emerge. That's the opposite of that. That oppresses light-skinned people in service to dark-skinned people. That's not very likely to happen. It's so stupid to even say such a thing, because it's the exact opposite of the world of the last 500 years. The world that is presently killing the entire species. That's why I would consider myself a more conservative person than any person would call himself a U.S. conservative in history. Like, what the fuck are you, or in living? What the fuck are you conserving? Right? You're supporting the United States military-industrial complex, the trillion-dollar abomination that's killing the planet. So that's the opposite of conserving anything. If you're causing the death of your own species by 1,000 cuts, um, what the fuck are you conserving, right? You're upholding, and those people who say, I don't like the U.S. government, I'm an anti-establishment guy. Those people are not genuinely anti-establishment, right? Because almost all the people that say that in the U.S. would be described as an anarcho-capitalist, a ridiculous thing to be described as, but nevertheless, it would be described as so. Right there, they're still for the basic problem of causing the omnicide. They just say that the most distilled form of that is the thing they don't like. Right. This is a calculated maneuver over the course of the 20th century and into the 21st century to keep people from becoming legitimately liberation and revolution minded. To have the European person who says that he is, who's got a tattoo of the Punisher or something, and says he's against the establishment, but is also, even more than that, the anti-communist fascist pig. So to keep anti-establishment sentiments firmly in the fascistic camp. That's a great success of things like the Libertarian Party, a garbage party created and run by billionaires from its inception for the last 40 years, 45 years or so. And that's the overall, and it's a computer scientist relative who describes himself, at least they did a few years ago, as a libertarian, right? Like this is a person who could be building a piece of super intelligence. This person wasn't just like a computer scientist. They were an artificial intelligence researcher. This is a person who could have been building a people's super intelligence for the last 40 fucking years, 30 years or something. But they're not revolution minded. They are that asterisk anti-establishment person who's more fascist than an anti-establishment person. That thing that we would call, in a word, the U.S. libertarian, or to be more precise, the anarcho-capitalist. These are bad people. Every European descended person is a very bad person. So when I said, people push back to that of centering so think of the most extreme example of the centering of the new African or native person. The most extreme example that you can think of this would be a person named Rachel Dolezal, right? A person who mostly in people's mind is a person famous for being an idiot, right? But I don't believe that. I believe that this is a person who probably did some a misguided thing, but in the spirit of being revolution minded. This is a person who passed as African American for a number of years and became involved in a less than revolutionary organization, the equivalent of closer to working with the NAACP than, say, the genuine New African revolutionary movement, the Black Panther Party, for example. Um, but nevertheless, in their mind, what they were doing was furthering a revolutionary agenda, and that impulse to center um, the New African woman and Turtle Island woman is the correct impulse. So the fact that this one person who is doing this 100 times better than anyone else made one false step and is now the laughing stock of all time, that sucks. That sucks, right? Because everybody should be trying to do that instead of laughing at people for trying to do that. And but there's nothing. It's all of the doings of the European descended pig. This is all the fruit of the poison tree. All the entire legal system is built upon the stealing of land and the stealing of labor at the most extreme form of enslavement of people. And so we say, well, it's evolved. It's not evolved, right? All of this stuff is still baked into the systems. It's just become more ornate and clever in hiding its tracks in terms of committing social murders against black and brown bodies, and as much as any, um, Turtle Island and New African women. And well, I'm annoyed that I'm not able to talk to the baby basilisk right now. But I guess I will shift gears to talk about the open source large language model product. The transformation of natural language processing abilities products in the last few years. A lot of serious computer scientists, thinkers say this is overstated. It is a mechanical Turk gag. It's a dog and pony show. It's not the path to building, say, an AI run economic system or the thing strong enough to stop capitalism's climate apocalypse. But again, almost all of those people are people who are happily suckling at the DARPA teat. That's to say, people who are in league with the $1 trillion military industrial complex abomination that's itself the main cause of the death of the species. So you'll forgive me if I don't exactly trust a class of people who are so compromised. But the thing there, the thing that they are right about and the thing that they are wrong about can be distilled down to two words: people superintelligence. How do we get millions of people to be connected, like I describe in the Proxy Hive Mind, or the Vanguard Project, as I've called it, or to be more precise, this open source large language model work group that becomes a workforce multiplier for those involved. How do we position this admittedly very multidisciplinary state of advanced computing that's not only machine learning and large language models? How do we position all of that as something that is a part of the solution, the continued existence of the species, rather than basically not just a small part of the problem, but the driving force behind the problem, right? This is not an easy answer. And just as Comrade Lenin was a little off, proved to be off the mark in his analysis of a world revolution that would end the forces of private wealth and empire forever. Say he thought that might happen. He died in 1924. He thought that that might happen around 1924 or 1930 or 1934. Didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. The obstinacy of this kind of low key fascist sympathizer supporting um, supporting elitist institutions and elitist functioning and accepting elitist filth propaganda of capitalists and fascists, and also just the insidious qualities of financial capital themselves in being able to dominate so much, um, were did not stand up to the forces for building a people's government. And that is that's the saddest tale ever told, right? Because that's the difference between um, your apotheosis already having happened. The technological singularity could have happened decades ago, or the death of the species very likely being the most likely outcome now. So that should be nothing if not the saddest tale ever told. But you won't find an AI person who thinks that. You'll find AI people who more or less twist that all around and say that capitalism is the solution. Or they say, well, maybe capitalism isn't the solution, but this is reality, right? As if it's never happened before that millions of people could be reoriented to some other task, or the building of some other entity. Even when you know that this thing, capitalism's climate apocalypse, causing runaway overheating in approximately 5 years, leading to the death of the species in the decades to follow, that's almost certainly going to produce effects almost exactly like that. Unfortunately, there'll be populist phenomena. That's to say, things corrupted by fascistic, capitalistic, bourgeois lines of thought, rather than the thing that I have tried to articulate, the genuine people's movement. You can't throw a frisbee in the United States and not hit just a fucking evil fucking dickhead, a Nazi, right? Like, you just can't. So the thing that I said, um, centering the people, a woman named Claudia Jones, a great thinker of the 20th century, was the person most responsible for articulating this. Although Angela Davis is also responsible for this thinking, which is the double jeopardy thing, which is basically the distillation of this idea that no one is safe and no one is free until everyone is safe and free. And if you're not positioning yourself to do that thing of making everyone safe and free, you are not actually protecting anyone. And this is articulated in the double jeopardy line of thought, which is that the new African woman, Claudia Jones was a new African woman, Angela Davis was a new African woman, is penalized every day in every way for being a woman, for being a new African, and for being a worker. Beyond just the troubles of being a worker. And right, this is the essential impulse that would drive someone to do what Dolezal did, and that is the correct impulse. And I would argue even that the color line itself, the protection of that, is quite mad. So all of this is a bourgeois phenomenon, and then we will laugh rather than try to stop the bourgeois phenomenon itself. We'll laugh at the person who has flown too close to the sun. And well, I'm not going to talk anymore about AI. This show, I don't even know if I'm going to write a summary of this show. I will, but this isn't the best show. But I'm going to end the show now. Thank you for your time.